What's up, everybody? I am Ryan Doyle. This is the Road to Your Table, and we're doing some D20 questions with Tanner, the
How's it going,
Paladin
guys?
of Paladin Prose. What's up, man? How you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's actually evening for me here in Tokyo, Japan, but I'm feeling good and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the wonders of the modern age. It's very easy to like take for granted that like I'm in Pittsburgh, you're in Japan, we're just hanging out, playing some D&D adjacent games. It's like, yeah, this is
Yeah,
this is
truly.
normal.
Yeah. And I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so it truly is such a small world.
Yeah, go birds.
Go birds. That's right. Hopefully that
uh,
ages well, depending on when this is posted.
Yeah. I think we'll know by the time this is up, actually. So
Well, we've got number two, I'm sure.
good. Well, good luck. I mean, technically, I used to be a Jets fan, which kind of put me off of football.
Well,
Um,
I grew up in the McNabb era of the Eagles dynasty, so that ruined football for me. I don't know how many Super Bowls I watched us lose. And then when we won our first Super Bowl, I was already living in Japan. So, that's how it goes.
so I mean, there's good and bad to being outside of Philly when a big thing happens like that.
Yeah, all my friends called me and I could hear all the chaos on the background. The poles were greased in Center City.
So
We'll
this
see
is
how it
talking
goes.
football with.
Yeah, yeah. I actually don't know that much about football, so yeah.
Oh, thank God, me neither.
Okay.
So
All
let's
right,
let's
perfect.
talk about TTRPGs,
Yeah,
D&D and D and
segue.
otherwise.
Yeah,
Uh, First, tell the folks at home because you are fairly new to the airways of YouTube, but you're
I
kind of
am.
kicking butt. But tell the folks where they'll find you
Thank
and
you.
what you're doing.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I run my channel. It's called Paladin Prose on YouTube, of course. And I guess I got started. I got really inspired by the OSR scene about 2 years ago. So this was right before the whole OGL scandal kind of took the D&D community slash TTRPG world by storm. And so I started Paladin Prose just because I was really inspired by the OSR community and I felt that I had a lot to say about it. And then I suppose kind of ironically, right around the OGL scandal, I kind of came full circle in my TTRPG journey and I got quite
Hmm.
heavily back into 5th edition D&D. So anyway, I make videos about D&D and OSR games, basically anything TTRPG. I try to focus on DM advice, but I also do reviews. And more recently, I've been focusing on live streaming, which has been really fun. So I do live streams on the D&D channel. You don't have to go anywhere else to watch me. And I design dungeons live on stream, and my chat kind of helps me ideate. We spitball ideas, and I'm currently working on my third dungeon that I've done collaboratively on stream. And so in the near future, the plan is to launch a Patreon and channel subscriptions where I will be providing PDFs for the dungeons that we design on stream, as well as my own supplements for D&D 5th edition and other games like Shadow Dark and stuff like that. I just launched a Discord community. We got 60 members in just over a day, which I was very stoked to see. And I was really
Hmm.
honored to see the community kind of rally together. So if any of that sounds interesting to you guys, especially adventure and dungeon design, is really kind of my jam. So obviously, if you're watching this, please come over and check it out, join the Discord, and feel free to come say hi.
Speaking of Dungeon Gems, you're an award winner. You got in on Taran. Indestructible Boy did. It was 2024, right? God, time has
Yes,
gotten strange recently.
it's weird,
Uh,
man. It's
um,
weird.
yeah, you did an award-winning dungeon with him, a five-room dungeon.
Yeah, some may say I've won an award or two, just one, but yeah. So yeah, I joined Indestructible Boys 5 Room Dungeon Jam last year, and I got third place, which I was obviously honored and very stoked about. Taryn wrote a very cool blurb to kind of endorse the dungeon. It's called Rotten Foundations. And so the idea behind Taryn's Dungeon Jam was that it had to be system neutral. So Taryn worked really hard on creating kind of a design key for TTRPG designers to utilize, especially you don't want to commit to any one system. So it's OSR adjacent, but the idea is it's like a sewer crawl. So I think I
Hmm.
called it a sewer crawl for mid to low to mid level assailants. And I don't want to spoil too much, but the idea is that the players are tasked with an assassination, and as the adventure continues, hopefully the players kind of start to question the true motives of those that hired them, as well as the person that they've been tasked to assassinate. And it's kind of a play on words, hence the title Rotten Foundation. So the idea is that the quest itself is rotten to its core. And so yeah, that was really fun to design. I've run it a few times, and I've actually onboarded multiple people onto D&D using this adventure, using old school essentials as well as 5th edition D&D at first level. So it works really well from a system neutral perspective, I hope. So yeah, that's on Drive Through RPG, so you can check that out as well. And thank you very much for the plug.
Yeah, of course. It's one of the things I'm here for. The
Yeah.
there's this like over classification, genreification. I feel like
Mhm.
there is pressure, and maybe it's just because this is what the internet does to us, and it's not happening in real life. But like
Yeah.
people gather in their camps of like OSR versus 5e, and we have to fight each other. And no, 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 you don't. It's all D&D once you start to see through the matrix, because you have a lot of videos on. You have index card RPG, but you have a lot on old school essentials, which I'm a big fan
Yeah.
of.
Same.
I ran a Dome and Wood campaign last year,
Oh,
which so
I'm waiting for it to get here, man. I backed the
yeah. Oh,
Kickstarter, what, like
I
2
want
years
the I
ago?
want I want the physical books, but yeah, I was running it off of PDFs. I actually had like
Hmm.
my laptop and like a tablet and like
Hmm.
files on my phone. It was the most like screen intensive in-person game I've ever run because it was just like
Yeah.
PDFs, PDFs, PDFs.
Yeah.
But like the ability to even like think in like a system neutral term, you
Uh-huh.
start to realize like, oh, I can do this in 5e or old school essentials. And like, yeah, they're gonna feel different. There's different genres, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always a sucker for like the cover song in a different like, oh, this is the reggae version of whatever
Yeah.
Stardust. Like,
Absolutely.
give me the mashups.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this just briefly before we started the video, but I got into the OSR because after running 5e for, I think at the time it was like 6 years, almost weekly, I just started to get a bit burnt out on the system itself. And I found the OSR community to be really accepting and kind of energizing because there's so much creativity. And in the video I have on my channel explaining the OSR, I talk about that kind of punk rock vibe
Mhm.
I got from the OSR that really spoke to me. But I agree, especially more recently, I feel like there's a lot of kind of antagonistic vibes going on in the community. And that's really been bumming me out, to be honest. So I'm trying to bring like a beacon of camaraderie back to the community. And I completely agree with what you're saying as well. Like there's so many amazing games out there. You can see, obviously, your shelf as well. My OSE books are actually on the shelf above, just off the cutoff. But there's so many awesome games to play. But if you play D&D, like it's okay to play D&D, man. And if you play Pathfinder, it's okay to play Pathfinder, whatever your jam is. Like at the end of the day, we're playing D&D and we're having fun with our friends, making make believe, using funny voices at the table. And that's what's really important.
And I really enjoy that about you, especially like in the current climate. I think part of it, I think the OGL really like set the tone, and now we're in the midst of an edition war that's not an edition war,
Yeah.
and YouTube is the algorithm changed, and some like classic channels have
Hmm.
seen their heyday, but everyone is running around with their hair on fire pretending that
Hmm.
there isn't a thousand D&D YouTubers who are that we're doing fine. We're not, no one's getting rich, but that's
Exactly.
okay. Like that's yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
My buddy,
thriving community.
sorry, not to cut you off, but
Okay.
my buddy Dan Masters, Professor
Hmm.
Dungeon Master. You know, he made a really good video on it, which inspired me to do a video. But you know, I always go back to using Dan as an example. You know, he's a good friend of mine, but also I just think his no nonsense approach to the topic really resonates with me. And people give him a lot of crap for his thumbnails and stuff, but at the end of the day, YouTube has evolved in such a way that it's kind of the way it works. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
hate the game, not the player. Like
exactly.
he has he has done, which I can't bring myself to do, and I'm not saying that I would do it remotely as well as he approaches things.
Well, he's a
But
master.
like,
He's really good at what he does.
great. I mean, great dude. If you don't know
Yeah,
Professor Dungeon Master, check him out.
absolutely.
All sorts of awesome stuff going on over there. But in the last, I don't know, year or two, in the midst of all of this cultural shakeup within and without the D&D community, he's really managed to like cut the knot of like playing the game and then holding up what everybody hates about the game and being like, hey, I made a video about cool creative DIY insert like terrain, whatever, and nobody watched
Exactly.
it. And then I made a video about the current hot controversial topic, and I gave a very, you know, I find him very well reasoned and researched
I
and
agree.
measured,
Exactly.
but he packages it in the way that sells, for lack of a better word. And everyone comes and
Yeah.
yells at him in the comments for doing clickbait. And he's
Yeah.
like, okay, the video before and after this, you didn't watch. And now you're coming and
Right.
yelling at me and engaging with this thing that you say you don't want, but you're telling the
Right.
computer, God, that rules us, that this is what works.
Yeah, we live in this algorithm dominated world recently. And the my more recent videos, I think you can see I'm starting to kind of explore that because I grapple with it too. I mean, I really appreciate the kind words you have for the channel, but of course, as a creator, I think it's very hard not to place value in the number, especially
Hmm.
as a YouTuber yourself. I know we all look at YouTube Studio. Is number green, arrow go up, or is number gray,
Hmm.
arrow go down? How am I going to feel about myself this week based on these numbers on the back end? And to bring things kind of back around, it really defeats the point and purpose of why we play D&D or other RPGs,
Hmm.
right? Like we want to escape from these things that we have to deal with in the day to day. And I just feel like the internet wants us to hate each other, but we can't let
Hmm.
the internet win. You know what I mean? Because that's what gets clicks, that's what gets the engagement. But I really want to try to get back to a time where that's not the most important thing. And if I can't, focusing on adventure design, dungeon design, and these kind of community live streams and talking with people like you, hanging out with other creators, and just kind of like doing the thing is what I
Hmm.
want to focus on in the future, you know?
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, this show has not helped my numbers because I went from a very particular format to like, oh,
Right.
here's a 90-minute free form conversation. But
Yeah,
oh, it's just like so deeply rewarding to just like
exactly.
hang out, be creative, like get other people's perspectives. It's a good time.
I totally agree. I don't know. I have hope that things will like come back around. I watched your episode with Diana of the Rose, and I really
Hmm.
enjoyed that. I'm a fan of her content. I actually met her at PAX Unplugged really briefly. I did the kind of like awkward starstruck thing where I saw her like hanging out in the lobby, and I'm
It's
like, oh my
so
God, that's Diana of the
yeah.
Rose. I gotta say hi to Diana of the Rose. And I like ran up and gave her my card. She was very sweet. But yeah, I agree. Like I appreciate you doing this. And there are people out there that get value out of it. And I think that's what's most important. Um,
Oh,
so
for I mean, people who like this love this. And that's
exactly.
I mean, that's part of like that's in your OSR community to a degree because it's just like OSR is a giant bucket, but it's just like everything that
Right.
isn't D&D or Pathfinder. But like you find
Right.
your little game that's perfect for you and your friends. Doesn't matter if a million other people are playing it. It's a
Exactly.
good time.
Exactly.
Um, Speaking of good times, let's roll some dice. Let's get some.
Yeah,
Let's
man.
get.
We could sit
Let's
here and
bring.
talk all day.
Oh, that's kind of the point. But let's pretend to have some structure here.
Yeah, no worries. I got my rune hammer die here, a little plug. My big chunky
uh,
D20. I'm ready to go.
Go. Give me a d20. What do you
Oh
got?
yeah, sorry.
Roll some dice.
18. 18, first roll.
18. So I will say there's no good or bad, but there is a tonal shift.
Okay. All right.
18. What is your top tip for managing a table of players, like balancing out the spotlight?
Ooh, so like during gameplay, making sure everybody has enough time to feel included.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so for a long time, in college, I ran a D&D campaign for 7 people for multiple years, which I would not like to do again. So I have a fair bit of experience with this, and I would say the most important thing is not every player is going to want as much spotlight or as much time to speak up, or at least that's what I found in my personal experience. So some people are going to be naturally way more charismatic, like in person, like above the table, and some people are going to be much more introverted and much more quiet. And so what I found too is if you, in earnest, try to get some players to really speak up and get overly involved, you might wind up making them uncomfortable, right? They might be happy to be kind of more subdued and in the background. So the number one thing I would suggest is kind of use your intuition. Hopefully, if you're playing D&D, you're playing with friends, and just be honest and like openly communicate about these things. Discord is a godsend for things like this. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable. I wouldn't necessarily call someone out mid game, hey Tasha, you've been quiet for the past 20 minutes. Like, why don't you do something cool? But
That's the perfect way to get someone to talk more
yeah,
and not
exactly.
feel awkward.
Yeah, I always, even in my current campaign, I use Discord to keep in touch with my players, touch base on things. If I feel like sometimes you can just tell like someone might have felt left out or something didn't go the way they wanted. You can, just the open communication I find players really appreciate. So, and then if there are players who really enjoy being the kind of face of the party or speak up a lot, let them do that. And just I find that it naturally balances out. But just keep in touch with your players and don't call them out in the middle of the game. I find they really appreciate it if you kind of come to them privately. That's always worked out really well for me and kind of helped deepen the bond between my players and myself.
Yeah, that's a good insight. There's always like, going back to like categorization of everything, the
Mhm.
audience member player, but there's like
Right.
I don't know, like a supporting actor, actress, like character actor
Yeah.
role where it's
Yeah.
just like I don't need to be the face. I just need to come in and go and then like sit in the back for a while.
Yeah.
I'll be back in an hour. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And always too, like I think you can just tell. I don't know. You can read people's faces, like
hmm,
whether or not people think they're being slick. I've also found a lot of the time you can see someone's face if they're feeling a bit left out or annoyed. And I always just try to prompt the character, like rather than using the player's name. I might say Tartufo. Like, what is Tartufo doing about this, or how does Tartufo feel about this? If it seems like the player's trying to get a word in but they can't, and that can also kind of subtly hint to the rest of the table, like, hey, like we need to pull it back a little bit here, or like we need to move on, etc.
yeah, some people do need more space too. And as like the dungeon master, I mean, it's on everybody to create that space. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a diplomatic text message or Discord DM
Yeah,
to the face of the party to be like, think, just like ask them a question, get them involved
yeah,
too.
exactly.
Um, yeah, I like that a lot. All right, give me another D20. Let's cook.
Yeah, let's do it. This is fun. Rolling dice. Two.
Dice, dice, dice. Two. Oh, I like two. What is your least favorite aspect of running games?
Wow. It's my least favorite aspect of running games. I think it is so I suffer from ADHD. I was diagnosed later in my life, so that's not something that I really knew about myself until much more recently. But I really struggle with executive function
Hmm.
disorder, which basically means, for anyone that's not aware, I struggle with doing. Can I curse on this show? I almost cursed.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah,
I struggle doing normie shit, as the way I describe it.
yeah.
So, like scheduling,
Hmm.
basically being like almost a babysitter. That sounds kind of mean and harsh, but I really struggle with
Everyone
like
relates to that.
scheduling, following up with everybody, like making sure everybody's going to come on time. And because you're the dungeon master, you take on kind of the leadership role of the group.
Hmm.
And so while I really appreciate that my players mean well, and I think they see me in that light, which is great, it can be really exhausting. Every question about the meeting and the gathering has to come through me. And over time, I've actually started to delegate some of these things out to my other players. I'm very fortunate that my beautiful fiance is one of my players, and of course,
Hmm.
she lives with me. So she has kind of taken on the role of scheduling things. We use Google Calendar, and she's been really great about making sure everyone accepts the calendar invite to kind of take that off of my shoulders. Um, but yeah, it's really just being kind of like sometimes I feel like an adult babysitter. I almost feel bad saying that out loud, but I think any dungeon master that's been in the game for long enough can relate to that. And
Yeah.
it's really nobody's fault. But if you're a DM watching this, I would definitely suggest thinking about ways to delegate some of these duties out. And if you're a player, I would definitely suggest reaching out to your DM and asking if there's something you can do for them outside of game prep and lore and things like that, like the IRL duties. And I would guarantee you that they would be happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, there's the dungeon master wears a lot of hats, and some of
Yes.
them are not in the dungeon master's guide. They've done a better job this time around.
Yeah. The new one's pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they've done a
But
better job this time around acknowledging all those like soft skills. Like the dungeon master creates worlds and is
mhm.
also responsible for throwing a party and making sure everyone shows up on time and
Yeah.
is well fed. Like, wait, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring your Dungeon Master snacks. And if they drink, bring them some beers. If not, their favorite sody pop, things like that go a long way.
Oh, heck yeah. All right, give me another D20.
Yeah, right on. Bada bing. 16.
16. I will say,
Mm.
in D&D and in relationships, finding good tools can
hmm
sometimes help. And like, all right, our brains are different, our preferences are different, so maybe it's not Google Calendar for everybody.
Right.
But
Right.
like having a thing outside of your brain that lives there that other people can interact with, perhaps while you're not even
Absolutely.
talking to them, that
Absolutely.
can like you can delegate to software as well as
Yeah.
humans.
Work smart, not hard.
Hmm. Or both. Uh,
Or
um,
that's how it goes.
16. What common advice really only applies to more advanced GMs? So like what gets bandied
Whoa.
about that is maybe not for beginners?
That's a fantastic question. I would say, and I'm pretty passionate about this,
Mm,
the idea that in D&D there are no limits to what a player can do, and like railroading is bad, like talking about like YouTube thumbnails that elicit negative emotions of fear and dread. I have onboarded a lot of people into D&D in my years since I've started, and I've also been fortunate to kind of guide, and I would say maybe even like mentor some people into a DMing role. And the number one thing that I see newer DMs struggle with, even veteran DMs, is this idea that you have to be able to you have to be able to be ready for anything that the players throw at you, which is true. Don't get me wrong, but I think the true art of game mastering is the invisible railroad. And all of my best sessions and best campaign moments I've found have come from a significant amount of structure underneath what the players are really seeing and experiencing. And so I guess how that applies to new GMs is I would say don't be afraid to run pre-written material for your first few tries, maybe even first year or two. Don't like see how it's done. Observe how the sausage is made, because I think you'll find over time that good D&D, in my opinion at least, is quite structured. And as you get more and more advanced and more comfortable in the role of being a dungeon master, the structure can become more and more on the fly. Like you can become a lot more comfortable kind of course correcting and redirecting and accounting for things on the fly. But it's really a balancing act, I suppose. But yeah, I think the whole railroading is bad thing is very overblown, and it gives new GMs the wrong idea. Like it almost intimidates them out of trying, because it's like I used this example the other day talking to a friend. Everyone thinks that D&D is supposed to be like Skyrim, to use video game examples, but I
Mhm.
actually think a great D&D campaign is more like a Mass Effect or a Dragon Age, where your players make narrative decisions that can take different branches, but you do ultimately kind of like come back in to the same flow. So when I'm running a session or planning a session, my players are always going to do things and say things that you did not account for. And it is your job to make that work. But I always end up kind of tying it back in to these plot threads and through lines that I've had in mind. Whereas Skyrim is like, running over and putting pots on people's heads and just running around willy-nilly, running off into the woods. Like it's okay to tell your players, like, hey, if you guys run off into the woods, I've got nothing. Like
Mhm.
the cool shit
Mhm.
is, sorry, pardon my French again, but like the cool shit is over there in the castle. And I promise if you go over there, it's gonna be cool. So you're not dictating how they go about adventuring through the castle, but it is okay to let players know, like, if you turn around and run the opposite direction, it's not going to be very fun for anyone, especially me as the GM, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I think that's like the kung fu, oh no, that's metagaming. It's like, no, it's not. That's being a human. It's like, hey, I spent a lot of time
Exactly.
on this, so it'd be cool if you
Exactly.
did it. And also, it's going to be a lot less cool for everybody if
Exactly.
you wander off into the world. Like, what's going on over there? Nothing worth adventuring about. Do
Yeah,
you want
I
me to? Do
found
you want
with
me
new
to?
players, sorry, I found with new players as well, you kind of tell them, oh, D&D, it's cool because whatever you can choose to do, whatever you want, really. Like you say something, you want to do something, and then we roll dice and we figure it out. And I've noticed that some players, even just trying to be cheeky or I guess kind of like push the limits, will be like, oh, so like, the quest giver is like, please save the guy at the top of the tower. And then they're like, oh, what is, like, screw that, I'm just gonna like go over here and see what this guy's doing. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but like, come on, man, we all have to kind of buy into the narrative here.
And I think it is it's like Skyrim. It's video game logic, right? Like the things
Yes,
that you're gonna do in a one-person game is different than in a
exactly.
multiplayer
Exactly.
cooperative game.
Yeah.
And the things that you're gonna do to like try to break a computer system running a game is different when it's
Exactly.
hey man, I'm the computer. Like I'm the
Yeah.
guy, I'm the game. You're trying to break me. And like I
Yeah.
put a lot of work in and scheduled all you dummies. Like, come on,
Exactly.
work with
And
me.
again, hopefully you're friends with the people you're playing with. And I think as a friend, it's important to be considerate of everyone's time and passion. And um, even I've been running D&D for almost 10 years now, and what I've kind of adapted to doing, and I'm sure most this probably isn't revolutionary advice, but at the end of the session, I check in with how everyone's feeling, and I basically kind of let people know, like, okay, so next session we're going to go over here and we're going to start exploring this plot thread. Are we all cool with that? Like we're on the same page about
Hmm.
that. And my players are really good about it. So, and it's not like, oh, you're railroading us or you're not letting us do what we want to do. I just kind of ask in advance so I know what to be prepared for, and then we go from there. So if you're a new DM, I would suggest starting with like pre-written material, because it will help you understand how adventures are run. And then once you get more comfortable with it, I would really suggest talking to your friends at the end of the session to help you prepare for the next one. And don't beat yourself up over feeling like you have to go into it completely blind and raw every single time, because that's just not how it works.
I'm a big fan of pre-written modules because it's just quick content. Because I like that open world feeling where it's
Right.
just like, yeah, you can
Right.
sail off to the horizon and find a different story. We're not doing
Yeah.
this story anymore, but like there's something else. And the only way I can really maintain
Totally.
that with multiple tables is by having like a shelf full of things, right? Like I
Yeah.
can't spend 4 hours homebrewing a night's worth of
Oh yeah.
content and then throw it out. Like I can spend an hour
Also,
prepping a couple different things and throw those out easily.
yeah. Again, sorry, I feel like I keep talking over
No,
you. I apologize. But,
no.
Quentin Tarantino says, I don't do homages, I steal. And he stole that line from Picasso, because I believe it was Picasso who said great artists steal. And so the other thing is, which you brought up a great point, man, is that like, don't be afraid to take a book off your shelf and smack your homebrew names on it and run that. Like, it's totally okay. Like, you can run a Forgotten Realms adventure, but just call it your homebrew world adventure. And, as long as you're not plagiarizing it out on the internet or something like that, like, that's what it's all there for. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's all about. So it's also totally okay to do that. And I still do that. Like, I'll pluck, OSC, Old School Essentials, has a ton of amazing adventures and stuff. And you can pluck out a dungeon, change the names, kind of help it fit into your world and stick it in there if I didn't have time to prep over the week or whatever. And it's all good, man. Like, you know, you're not you don't have to be this perfect, all knowing homebrew machine. Like, it's okay to use some structure.
Yeah, that way burnout lies. Well, that's
Absolutely.
another way burnout lies. Okay, give me a D20,
Yeah, let's do it.
please and thank you.
No worries. 10.
10. What is your favorite house rule slash rule that you've stolen from some other place?
That is a great question. What is my favorite house rule? Probably hero coins from Index RPG. And I believe even like Kelsey ended up kind of adapting that idea into Shadow Dark. I know I saw like Bob World Builder made a video about it. Are you familiar with the hero coin?
Off the top of my head, it's early for me, but that's like
Yeah, no worries,
a
man.
version of inspiration that is it's like an
Yeah.
improved inspiration where it's like I bottle caps we used to do, or just like
Yup. I
here's a
actually,
physical representation of this thing that you're gonna this like metagame resource that you're gonna forget about. Here's a poker
sorry, I
chip
took a
or
little Yeah, I took a
yeah,
little adventure, but I bought these little like coins in a hobby shop here in Tokyo.
nice.
And so you can it's fun to physically hand your players a little prop that they can hold on to. But yeah, approved improved inspiration is a great way to put it. But you can basically there are different variations of it, but essentially it usually has a few properties, and it's to reward your players for doing something cool, normally doing something heroic. So even if it's like risky or there's a higher risk of failure, it's not attached to succeeding on the roll. It's just like for even trying it, I'm going to give you this
Hmm.
coin. And the way I run it at my table is that the players can cash it in to force a reroll. They can either reroll their own die or they can have me reroll as the GM. So if the monster gets like a really critical hit in and it's like a life or death thing, they can kind of reverse it, or you can automatically crit with it. So basically, again, in combat, or if it's like a skill check, if they're trying to, whatever, a classic thing, like they're trying to persuade the guards to let them through, but this is really critical to them in the moment and they really don't want to fail. If they've done some cool shit throughout the session, they can cash in a hero coin and just kind of automatically succeed. And they've actually, in 5.5, the newest D&D edition, I noticed they kind of adapted inspiration to make it closer to the Hero Coin version. And I wonder if they got inspired by like Shadow Dark getting so popular and But anyway, I've noticed since adding the hero coin to my game, my players love it. And like also if my players make a really bad pun, but it's bad enough that like it really makes me laugh, I'll just give them a hero
Mm,
coin for like a bad pun or
mm,
something like that. And that's just it's just a lot of fun. It helps. It's good to give your players more things to do, I think, rather than take things away. Um,
hmm
this is a bit of a tangent as well, but I've noticed in some OSR circles, there seems to be almost like this relishing in like pulling things away from the players. If they make a mistake, just being punishing in general. And in the name of grim dark or whatever. But for me, I find my players like light up if they do something cool and they get a hero coin. And even if they're like, I'm gonna run off the balcony and grab the chandelier and swing across the room and grab the prince and give him a kiss on the cheek, but then and they like completely beef the roll. And then so I'm
Mm,
like, you go to jump off the thing, but you fall over, you break the chandelier, and it's a disaster. But you get a hero coin for
hmm
trying. And then so next time it sweetens the deal. I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like, yeah, like one, just like the token of it all makes
Hmm.
it much more immediate and like reward. Like, here's your cookie.
Yeah.
Here's your
Yeah.
reward.
Yeah.
But just then you said something that made me kind of circle back to what we were talking about in the opening of like the OSR being it's a million things. It's
A
like
million things.
just this kind of catch-all category, but like it is not a monolith. So I think some people maybe experience or bump against a part of it that doesn't
Yeah.
speak to them, let alone like a part of it that like repels them. But
Yeah.
like I think and I think a lot of it is like the pendulum swing kind of overcorrecting too, of like 5e is very precious about characters that are essentially immortal and you can't touch them. You can't put a dent in
Yeah.
them. So the story's a lot less interesting at the end of the day than having
Yeah.
like real stakes and vulnerabilities. And there's a difference between like threatening the character sheet. Or I mean, like I run a fairly deadly game even when I'm running 5e, 5.5e
Yeah. Me
by
too.
like
Yeah.
modern standards, but like the antagonism of it all, the antagonistic dungeon master comes shining through some of that
Exactly.
stuff.
I think it's something that we all like grapple with throughout our careers as dungeon masters. And but yeah, I just hazard caution against I say this in my video about dungeon design and other things, but I also always say never do gotcha moments in bad faith. And I think
Hmm.
that's another kind of like new GM mistake. Like it never feels good in the player perspective when your DM is like, ha ha, like you lose your sword. Unless like if that happens in the narrative, then it happens in the narrative. But just being like punishing for the sake of it is bad vibes. So if the player loses the sword, but they lost it because they tried something fun, give them a hero coin. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So they
Hmm.
might have lost their sword, but at least they get like a token of appreciation for the
Yeah,
effort.
that
You know?
balance the scales. Yeah, you woke up and your weapon is gone. Bad. You
Yeah,
walk in and there's a rust monster there, and there's a chance you're going to lose your weapon based on what you decide to do and what the dice do. Cool. Yes.
exactly. Yeah,
All right, give me one more d20, please.
yeah. Let's do it. Time is flying, man. This is fun. I rolled. I think I already rolled an 18.
Ooh, allow me to introduce you to the lightning round.
Uh
Uh,
oh. All right.
boo, boo, boo. Lightning is in quotation marks. You can answer more than a yes or no. There is no
Okay.
clock.
Okay.
But do you fudge?
Yes. Okay. So with an asterisk, going back
Mhm.
to our conversation earlier, I used to fudge all the time when I first started running 5e, and I was a huge advocate for it if it meant more fun for the players. Then I went hardcore the other direction when I got really into the OSR, and I stopped using a DM screen and I rolled everything in front of the players, and there was no fudging. Um, I think if that's the way you want to do it, more power to you. I'm not a hater at all. But what I have noticed throughout the years is nothing sucks more to kill, like suck the energy out of a room when you just roll the DM rolls like really good and you mess up the player's day. or vice versa. So now I fudge only when I feel like it's like the dice have just decided that it's really gonna suck, and it's like an intuition thing. So
Hmm.
I would say I fudge maybe one every like 5 to 6 sessions,
Hmm.
but yeah,
I thought you were gonna say rolls there for a second. I was like, oh, that's a high.
that's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good answer. I roll in the open because on my one table because it's a
Uh-huh.
fairly and it's interesting that the player base has transitioned out. So it's a different it's literally it's like the Ship of Theseus campaign where it's like it's a whole
Yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
campaign, but it's the same people.
I've been there.
I mean different people, but yeah.
I've been there.
But like we run a fairly strategic like it's like maybe it's like 50% combat, but like when combat is happening,
Hmm.
like I like the ability to be like, oh, you could do this or this. Like it makes me feel more impartial in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. And then like I don't know, if you suck a crit, you suck a crit. Like dice are doing that. That's not me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but there are plenty of times where I'm like, oh shit, I wish I had the capability to do. And
Yeah,
with experience, there's other levers you can pull behind the screen, which are a lot harder
right.
to do sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, fudging ain't a sin.
I guess if I
What
can
is your
just, oh,
favorite?
sorry, no,
Oh,
oh, sorry.
yeah,
I know
shoot.
this is lightning round, but to make it more concise, in my 5e campaign, which is it's my homebrew, much more narrative based, my players love role play. I fudge sometimes. I do also run an OSE campaign, which is a mega dungeon crawl, and in that
Hmm.
campaign, I roll out in the open and I don't fudge anything because that's what the players want. So, it depends.
And I mean, I'm a huge ad. This is like kind of the thesis or one of the theses of the channel. It's like more equals better. Like try all the things, experience a variety. You might have personal preferences. Also, some strategies, rule sets, techniques might be better for certain parts of a campaign or certain games that you are running. Like you're going to run, I don't know, Morkboard and Mothership are going to be very different experiences than D&D 5e, and
Exactly.
that's cool. I don't eat the same thing for dinner every night. I don't watch the same show
Exactly.
every day. Like
Exactly.
lightning round.
Yeah.
Favorite die size, and I'm gonna like a unit, not just like oh I got this big D20, like 4, 6, 8, 10, 12,
Oh
30, go
yeah.
nuts. But what's your favorite die increment?
Hard. I really like the D12 just because I feel like it's so it doesn't get enough love. Index card RPG really introduced me to the love of the D12. But I also really like the D4 for timers. And I know you didn't say like shape, but these types of D4, I really love sticking them on the table. I love rolling it on the table, and when I do that, my players know something's coming in like 2 rounds, 1 round. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say 4 for the utility of the timer, and 12 because it's a fun, wild die that doesn't get enough love.
Everybody says 12. D4 is controversial. I've
Interesting.
got a couple D4s, but like
Okay.
D12 is
Okay.
and like it's my favorite, but I didn't
Yeah.
know until I started polling the community that like, yeah, D12s, man. Everyone, there's something about, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel bad for him, to be honest.
Kind of asked and answered already, but published or homebrew?
Uh, Again, it depends. I would say OSR style, I tend to run pre-published adventures because I write my own, which may sound like a weird answer, but I really enjoy experiencing other people's work. But I
That
run
tracks for me.
yeah, I run a homebrew 5th edition campaign set in my own world, which I'm planning on releasing piecemeal on my future Patreon, and so that's all homebrew. So both.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Encumbrance? Question mark?
I've tried it. It doesn't work. I don't like it. No.
I might know the answer to this one, but favorite class? Yeah,
Bard. No,
it
I'm
ain't
just
called.
kidding. It's
Yeah,
Paladin. Yeah, of course. I love Paladins. Yeah.
it ain't called rogue poetry, folks.
No,
Um,
exactly. Yeah. I resonate very deeply with Paladins, and in World of Warcraft, I play a Paladin. Every fantasy RPG I play a Paladin. So
I'm curious, is it the gameplay loop or like the narrative of like a cause, an oath? or both?
Yeah, it's more of the idea of that I like the idea that paladins have like an ideal that they stand for. They tend to be the person that stands up for what they believe in. They don't necessarily have to be a good guy per se, but throughout my life, I've had certain struggles and things. I think anyone that plays fantasy RPGs, we tend to relate real life things to our fantasies. But when things have gotten really hard, in some ways, I think to myself like I'm a paladin. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
have my ideals and that's why I call my Discord is like the Order of the Pros, and it's like we have the Oath of the Pros, and it's like to me, it's like doing what I believe in, which is telling stories with my friends and having fun. So I just resonate with that. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, I like that. It occurred to me for those of you listening at home, there are links in the description, but it is Paladin Prose, Prose, not
Yes, like
Pros.
exactly a little play on words for you there. It's like the written
Yeah,
word.
I just made the poetry joke, and it was like, wait a minute, some people are not experiencing with
That's funny.
subtitles.
I got you.
Favorite lineage, species, race, ancestry, whatever nomenclature you prefer.
Oh, this is really hard for me. I really like goblins. I really like
Hmm.
goblins. But I
Hmm.
guess it depends on the system and your vibe if they count as like a playable race. I'm also quite partial to playing Dragonborn, just because I think they're pretty badass. And I played a Dragonborn paladin for many years. His name was Kolador Khan, and he talked like this, and yeah. I think I really like dragons too. So Dragon Man, I guess they're very polar opposites, but I like being a little snotty, like a little snotty goblin, or like a big dragon man, you know.
That feels like a very dungeon master main answer. Just like,
Yeah, right.
give me the weird monster dude. I want the weird little dude, and then the powerful,
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
idealistic dragon person. Yeah,
Yeah.
goblins in your mind. So they, interestingly, they have made them Fey in the new monster manual, which we'll have in our hands by the time this goes out.
Yeah.
Which tracks from my headcanon. But how do you feel about that? I'm curious about like how do you categorize your goblins?
So in my homebrew world, they are Fae.
Hmm.
And I did realize that they made that canon in D&D. To me, it's just because I like the idea that they're related to elves, and in my homebrew world, the Fae, man, I'm really just extrapolating
That's
here,
what we're
but
that's what we're here for.
yeah, I can't wait to start sharing it more with the community. But it's not really the Fey Wild. We call it the Fey Kingdoms, and the Fey Kingdoms exists on the other side of this mountain range. And so the goblins have a mysterious tie to the Fey, and I like that idea that they're kind of like these misfit guys. At least in my homebrew world, like they mean well and they're kind of misunderstood. I've always liked goblins that have personality. I don't know if you're familiar with World of Warcraft at all.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long time. I don't know how much it's changed, but
Okay.
yes, I yeah.
Well, yeah, in WoW, goblins are like New York, like crime, like
Yeah,
mobsters.
yeah, yes.
I love giving goblins like personality beyond just something to kill.
I'm
So yeah,
from
I
New
like
York
that.
originally, and just like New Yorkers with like bombs, basically.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're they're like gnomes on drugs.
yeah, exactly. But I think their kind of mischievous nature like makes sense for them being connected to the Fae. Yeah.
I've had to explain this to a lot of people, but you are an OSR guy, so you're going to understand this one.
Yes, sir.
Combat as sport or war?
Whoa, that's another. You've got great questions, man. Combat is sport or war? War, dude.
Yeah, mm,
Yeah.
I like it. Roll for stats, standard array, point by.
I always roll for stats and I encourage my players to do so regardless of the system. But if somebody is really like dead set on playing a certain character, I'm okay with point by.
Do you tack more towards balance or realism?
Balance is a fugazi. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
Good answer.
Realism in fantasy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Moving
I
on.
mean, you can almost say the same thing about realism and fantasy too. It's
Exactly.
like, yeah, I'll
That
just
is my point.
trick question. Good answer.
Mhm.
Flying characters, yes or no?
Fine. Yeah, in my homebrew campaign, because I use fifth edition and somebody's got wings and they're not even level 5 yet. Um, but I personally, it depends. I'm not a huge fan though, to be honest. But if it makes them happy,
Yeah, it changes. Like now I have to think in 3 dimensions always.
yeah, I will say, if your DM lets you fly, like, don't be a dick about it, please. You know,
Mm, That
you
that
know,
applies to like most, yeah,
true,
most
true.
things that the DM lets you do.
You flying players know what I mean, though. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. I've had good luck because I have good players. I'm like, is this
yeah,
okay? Can I?
same.
I'm gonna fly up and look around. It's like,
Yeah,
how far is the horizon from 800 feet up?
yeah.
Shit, okay, hold on. All
Exactly.
right,
I'm
that's
also I say I'm very spatially challenged. Like I'm really bad at giving estimates of distance.
hmm,
So just if you're, just be willing and open to figuring it out together is what I would say.
yeah. You can see two hexes in every direction.
Yeah.
That's why I like leagues because it's got that like faux
Leagues.
medieval fantasy thing. It's just like
Oh, that's
how
good.
far you can walk in an hour, right? It's a unit of distance as time, basically.
I'm gonna steal
Um,
that.
yeah, yours. Take it with my blessing. I don't know where I
Yeah.
picked that up, but uh, best, and I'll accept multiple answers here, but best or favorite
Okay.
third-party tool,
Oh man. Best or favorite third party tool? Ah,
or like,
minis? Like terrain, does
oh,
that count?
I'll accept it. That was not the intention, but yeah, maybe.
Sorry, no. Can you extrapolate?
Give me let's say 5e. Let's drill because like when you open it up to like everything ever, it gets much more complicated. But like
Sure.
fifth edition, non-WotC supplement or like
Oh, I see.
software or something like that.
I really like. I have it on my shelf somewhere. I have this 5e book called Broncolonia.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like
No, new to me.
spaghetti. They call it spaghetti fantasy. It won an Emmy the year it came out. But it kind
Nice.
of adapts. I hope I'm pronouncing it right too. I'm probably not. The Italians would probably. It's made by Italian developers, but it's a fifth edition supplement. But it's kind of more lower fantasy,
Hmm.
and they call it spaghetti fantasy because it's kind of inspired by the spaghetti western movie movement. Um, but it's not cowboy based. It's like swashbuckly fantasy. But I really enjoy that book, and I got a ton of inspiration for my homebrew campaign from Broncolonia. Um, I would also say I'm a huge fan of MCDM. I
Hmm.
think Flee Mortals is a crazy good book, which also kind of like opened my brain to the design possibilities, kind of outside of what WotC officially publishes. Um, but yeah, to be honest, fifth edition, I kind of homebrew most of it myself. Um, and I'm much more into the third party realm outside of that. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like kind of a follow-up perhaps, but your favorite non-D&D game. Also a crazy difficult question, but
no, no, no. Yeah, it is really hard. So my favorite, like, I feel like Old School Essentials is D&D because to me it's just like the
yeah,
purest distillation of D&D.
that's the
I
thing. Yep.
love Old School Essentials. I love Gavin. I love Necrotic Gnome. Um, So my go-to is Old School Essentials. I really like sorry, I keep looking back. Frontier Scum, which is a Morkborg adjacent system that's like cowboys, and I'm a
Hmm.
huge Western fan. Sorry, I'm gonna give you three.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take
uh
it.
Old School Essentials, Frontier Scum, and oh no, the third one I was gonna say. Oh, I Index Card RPG. I love that game.
Uh,
Um,
mhm.
Also, probably one could argue is basically D&D, but I think that book, any serious dungeon master needs Index Card RPG. It's like a Bible of running the game.
Uh,
And I highly recommend it.
yeah, I mean, everything that Runehammer Hank, the man of many names.
Dude, I love
It,
Hank. Yeah,
it,
he's a good homie.
good dude, good dude.
Yeah,
Wish him well.
me
The
too.
The book is short and punchy, which you can't say about a lot of books in general, but especially
Yeah,
TTRPG books. A lot of good
absolutely.
advice, but I think just the whole approach, again, circling back to what I was saying before, of like seeing through the matrix, like boiling it down to its essence and like realizing how it's actually all the same, like old school essentials versus 5e. It's like it's the same it's the same game. It's got different
Yeah,
little like addendums to it, but
yeah,
like it's making it like here's an index card with a picture on it. This is D&D. Like it's just translating it into pictographs helps at least helped me see through like, oh, this is much more translatable than I thought.
exactly. Yeah, actually, like I almost quit D&D like altogether. It sounds so dramatic, but I was really burnt out and just struggling in life in general, and like I was just in a bad place. And I found Runehammer on YouTube, and I read Index Card RPG, and then I actually learned that Hank is based in Philly, and I
Yeah,
actually, yeah, because he said John in a video, and I was like, this
yeah. Whoa,
motherfucker
this
is
is my
from
people.
Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I reached out to him and he actually like hit me back up, and like I actually, he knows this, but like, Hank really kind of saved me as a DM and inspired me to start Paladin Prose, and he's a good friend of mine at this point, and also I would say a bit of a mentor. But anyway, I mean, Index Card RPG is huge for me, and I still look at it all the time. And I actually keep it next to me when I'm playing because there's just so many good bits of advice in there. And if I feel stuck or something, Index Card RPG always pulls me out of it. So it sounds weird. I wish he named it something else, to be honest. But just because when I try to tell my friends, like, Index Card RPG is the jam, man, they're like, Index Card RPG? That sounds lame. But once you get into it, I think it's
Uh,
like the Bible for GMs.
ICRPG, and it gives it a little more
Yeah,
nerds.
I
Nerds
call it
love acronyms,
ICRPG.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But Hank knows what's good, man. Definitely check it out. Yeah.
He's a good dude. I don't think he's opened. He's opening a store. He's opening a brick and mortar in Philly.
Oh, it's open.
Did you know?
I've been.
Oh, it's
It's
open. Oh, cool, cool,
incredible.
cool. It
If
is
you're,
open. All
yeah,
right, good, good, good.
you got to come, man.
I bunkered down. I mean, yeah, I'm far away, but like I don't know. I have family in New
True.
York, so I drive around Philly all the time. I got to get over there. I'm pumped.
Oh, dude, it's amazing. He has like he calls it the octagon. It's like behind the bookshelf where he's got like all the zines and stuff, and you open the bookshelf and he's got this sick custom game table.
Ah.
You can paint minis there. And Hank is the man. I mean, he will, he could talk to a brick wall. Like he's just so good. He's so personable, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're ever in the Philly area, go to Runehammer and say what's good and tell them Paladin sent you, and he'll know who you're talking about. So yeah,
All right, man. This has been an awesome time. We're gonna get
yeah,
together in a little bit and do some cool creative stuff. Game Master's
right
Compendium of
on.
Explosive Creation. But until then, why don't
Can't
you
wait.
tell the folks what's next? What's coming up from? I mean, you have a whole docket of plans, but
Yeah.
what's coming up for like what's coming up for the channel?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much, man. This was honestly so much fun. I feel like we're really birds of a feather, and the time flew by. So, to answer your question, right now, I think anyone that checks out my channel, you might see that like my videos have been a bit all over the place, but I'm really going to be focusing on the adventure and dungeon design aspect of my creative hobby life moving forward. So, weekly live streams creating adventures and dungeons together as a community. And I am in the middle of working on a Patreon and channel memberships. And that will be the avenue in which I share my homebrew world kind of piecemeal as I create it. I kind of teased a little bit about it in one of our answers. And this is the first time I'm openly talking about it on YouTube, actually. So
Oh,
you got it
you
out
heard
of
it
me.
here. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. So if anything that we talked about resonates with you, and I also just opened up the Discord, and really like I just want to build a community of people who are into doing the thing and want to like talk with and support each other. So, be on the lookout for the announcement about the homebrew world, and come hang out on the live streams. And if you're interested in learning more about making dungeons and designing adventures, I am your guy, I hope. So you're more than welcome to come hang out and say what's up.
Yeah, I appreciate having you here, man. A
You too,
lot of
dude.
positivity coming out of you and the channel, and I'm
I'm
sure,
glad.
yeah, with that as like the center of gravity for the community, yeah, just doing the thing instead of arguing about things that no one's really doing in the first place.
Yeah, dude, we got to deal with that. I got to deal with that shit at work, dude. Like, you know what I mean? I want to come home and have fun. Like, honestly, I'm just so over it, man. And I respect, but I'm just so over it. And like I say at the end of all my videos, like, don't forget to be kind to yourself. And that's why I say venture
Mhm.
forth as well, because it's like, just keep on keeping on, man. You know, it's going to be
I
okay.
love it. That's funny. I used
Yeah.
to have, I say be kind now because I used to have
Yeah.
the list of kindnesses or whatever, but like
Yeah. I love
it's
that.
such, it's yeah, and it's kind of it's a breath of fresh air, let's say, on the internet,
Well, thank
especially in this
you.
day and age. So
I
yeah,
agree.
appreciate it. Looking forward to the next part. Everybody go check out Paladin Prose. Links down below to all of the things. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thanks, guys. Peace.